Mr. Mercer, can Congress pass a law that says cities are no longer able to participate in zoning? We're going to take it over at the federal level because we don't have enough houses. Would that be constitutional?
Senator Kennedy, I don't believe it would be.
Why not?
I believe that's the sort of thing that the Constitution has, not given Congress the authority under Article 1 to do that. And in fact,
why not? On what basis?
In our system of federalism, those things that are not set forth in the Constitution are reserved to the states. And zoning is one of those quintessential public health, safety, welfare matters that we reserve to local government to resolve. And so I don't believe it would be permissible for this body to attempt to codify something in that regard.
So local government would win in that instance.
That is my understanding.
Okay, suppose local government came back and said, not only now that we've won and we have jurisdiction over our own zoning and our own housing laws, if you want to build a new house in our city, the permit is now $50,000. Can they do that?
Senator, essentially, I think the same analysis applies. I think that the local government would have the ability to establish that, and I don't think Congress could overrule it, and I think they would have the inherent authority to do so.
Why isn't that a taking under the United States Constitution and the Fifth Amendment?
Senator, that would be a whole different analysis, but I don't believe...
Same analysis. We just established they have the right to zone as they wish. And so and to regulate local housing. They're doing it. They're saying $50,000 to get a building permit. You're telling me that's constitutional?
Senator, I believe it would be. I think that they could establish that they need, in order to engage in the permitting process and go through what they need to do as a local government. I doubt very much whether that would be a violation under a compensable taking under the Fifth Amendment.
You familiar with Sheets v. County of El Dorado?
Senator, no, I'm not. That is not something that I've encountered in my practice.
The Supreme Court struck down a $23,420 fee for a permit to build a home.
I was not familiar with that precedent, Senator. I'll make sure.
At some point, local government, which has wide discretion when exercising its police power, at some point, their actions can step over the line, can they not?
That is true, Senator. And
violate what? The takings clause?
In this case, I'm not familiar with if Sheets was based upon the Fifth Amendment or if there was some other analysis, but...
It was Fifth Amendment.
Okay.
Y'all hungry? I am.
Yes, Senator.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, thank you. Thanks to all the nominees today. Written questions for the record may be submitted until August 6th at 5 o'clock. We would ask you to respond promptly. This hearing is adjourned.
But Kennedy isn't done. He pivots. What if the New York Times runs a scathing editorial calling the senator, let's just say, less than stellar? If Kennedy wants to publish a reply or even buy a full-page ad, could the paper say no? Meredith says, under the First Amendment, absolutely. Newspapers have the right to pick and choose what they publish. But flip the channel. If Kennedy tries to buy political ad time on TV, can the station just refuse him? Meredith explains, nope, not so fast. Federal law, namely the equal time rule, says TV stations must play fair when it comes to political ads. Why? Because the airwaves are public property, and the government gets to set the rules. And what about your cell phone carrier, like AT&T? Suppose they read that negative editorial and decide to cut off your service. Can they do that? Meredith stumbles at first, but Kennedy presses. Since carriers use public airwaves and are regulated as common carriers, they can't play favorites. Meredith finally agrees. Now, the spotlight shifts to Mr. Mercer. Kennedy wants to know, can Congress just take over local zoning to fix a housing shortage? Mercer says no way. The Constitution reserves those powers for the states and local governments. But what if a local government jacks up the building permit fee to $50,000? Mercer thinks they can, but Kennedy brings up a Supreme Court case, Sheets v. County of El Dorado, that shot down a similar fee. Even with wide discretion, local governments can cross a constitutional line, especially with the Fifth Amendment's takings clause. Mercer concedes the point. Before adjourning, Kennedy reminds everyone, when it comes to politics, knowing your rights and your limits is everything. If you want to stay ahead of the political curve, make sure you hit subscribe. This is Capital Pulse. Thanks for sticking with me to the end.